Welcome to Crew Logs, a series of personal recordings, field notes, and psychological breakdowns from humans scattered across the galaxy. Some are stationed on alien ships. Some are stranded on distant moons. Some just haven't slept in 3 rotations and need to scream into a void. One thing's for sure, humans may not be the weirdest species out here, but they're definitely the loudest. New logs drop every Sunday. Subscribe, smash that bell, and let's find out just how far from Earth you can go before things start talking back. They say we're deep now, though I don't know what that means exactly. One of the officers explained it to me during my first meal aboard, the XO, Kale. She said that if you imagine space and time as 4 dimensions, then the 5th dimension branches off from all of them at a right angle we can't really see. Not up or out, but somewhere else entirely. We call it down, she said, between bites of something that looked like lamb and tasted like actual food. Because it behaves like depth, dive in far enough and you don't come back. The others nodded, not dramatically, just quiet confirmation, like gravity was being discussed. I asked her if this 5th dimension had a proper name. Not one that means anything to people like us. So they call it depth. They say things like surface, pressure, trim, even keel. They aren't being poetic. It's easier to think of it like water because our brains can't hold the actual geometry. Subcosmic travel isn't just fast or hidden, it's adjacent. Like swimming in a black film just below reality, where light and radiation don't reflect right and no signal escapes unless you breach back to the surface. I don't pretend to understand it. I'm not a physicist. I'm a diplomat. A man of peace, which makes me about as welcome aboard a stealth-class war vessel as a clownfish in a reactor core. And yet, here I am. We jumped into the Florm system 3 days ago. Not to strike, not to recon. Just to drift quiet and unseen beneath enemy surveillance while the Silent Spear, a TSV they call her, slides us into position. My destination is a Florm station above a minor colony world. There, I'll meet with their envoy. If I succeed, this stupid, bitter war ends. If I fail, it drags on, another border skirmish nobody wants, but both sides feel obligated to win. A war of retaliation, orbital bombardments, and slow attrition. I volunteered, not for the spear specifically, but for the mission. The only way to reach the station without triggering protocol or preemptive fire was to go in unseen, launched like a quiet prayer. So I became the cargo, and this sub is my courier. I didn't expect it to be like this. My quarters are little more than a sealed bunk. No screens, no viewports. Just a cot with restraints, a fold-out table, and a set of headphones that let me monitor non-critical ship broadcasts, mostly navigation ticks and breathy announcements from the crew. The first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. Not in the way most ships are quiet, humming with filtered air and digital minds whispering diagnostics. The Spear is analog, deliberately, every system built to work in silence. Dials, sliders, toggle switches, paper logs. They don't risk digital emissions, even passively. Everything is done by hand. And everyone moves like they were born into stillness. I was invited to dine with the officers on my 2nd day. A surprise. I expected ration cubes and filtered slurry. Instead, there was warm bread. Fresh. Real spices. Stew with actual meat and greens. I asked where it came from. Kale grinned like I'd asked something stupid and obvious. The galley chef is the 2nd most important person on the Spear, she said, right after the reactor tech. We can handle depth, handle quiet, but morale, that's what kills a sub. I found out later that the crew trade favors, stories, even music to get assigned meal prep rotation under him. It's considered an honor. It keeps them grounded, human. Kyle also took that moment to explain Blue Alert. It's not just a mode, it's a discipline, a mental state. When the ship enters enemy-adjacent territory, all white lights shift to blue. That's the signal, the reminder. From that moment on, everyone whispers. Not just to be quiet, but because it triggers muscle memory. Don't activate anything. Don't flush waste. Don't heat food. Don't send pings. Don't run the washer. Anything that emits, even in trace amounts, becomes a beacon. Energy efficiency isn't the goal. Sensor silence is. They don't enforce it with rules. They don't need to. The crew has internalized it like religion or superstition or maybe just survival. I haven't spoken above a whisper in almost 40 hours. The sub drifts slowly, intentionally. They say the deeper you go, the more resistance spacetime gives you. Not like drag, more like wrongness. The ship wasn't built for this direction. The deeper we dive into the fifth dimension, the more it presses back against our hull. It warps tolerances, slows thoughts, tugs at your stomach. We're not supposed to be here. The spear knows it. So does the crew. They joke sometimes, in murmurs. Someone called the coffee depth-proof sludge. Another cursed a jammed hatch and muttered, "She doesn't want us in that section today." And everyone nodded, like that made perfect sense. I think they've spent so long beneath the surface, they've come to treat the ship like it's alive. Maybe it is. At this depth, maybe everything grows a soul. They told me we'd reach launch range in another 30 hours. The pod is prepped. They're already tapering our descent, pulling back toward the surface. But we're still deep, and something about this quiet makes it hard to tell if we're alone down here. I was on the bridge when it started, not officially, of course. Civilians aren't meant to be there even if they're passengers. But Captain Idris had invited me that morning. Not warmly, not cruelly, just a nod and a chair. I think he wanted me to understand what this ship was actually built for. We were still running silent, maybe 20 meters below the surface, if meters even mean anything in this kind of space. The spear drifted, trim and level, one more day until launch position. Then we picked up the freighter. Floor markings, military registration. It was massive. Some kind of long-haul logistics carrier, probably armored, probably full of weapons and rations and soldiers. Kyle confirmed it was heading toward a forward position near the border. It wasn't broadcasting distress, it wasn't even aware we were there. The bridge crew lit up. Not loudly, never loudly, but with a rising energy. Eyes sharpened, hands moved with precision. I heard quiet approval pass from mouth to mouth like ripples. It's a real one. High value. No escort. Gods, no escort. I turned to Idris. You're going to attack it? He nodded once, already reading firing solutions off the wall panel. We are a warship, he said. This opportunity may never come again. And that was that. I stayed silent. I watched them line up the shot, coordinating coil gun alignment, projected wake distortion, electromagnetic bleed estimates, no digital targeting, just intuition and mechanics and sheer practice. The XO gave the firing order in a whisper. The shot was nearly silent. A single thrum through the hull. No flash, no sound. Just a tremor in the air, and then the readout blinked. Direct hit. The freighter cracked open like a lung collapsing. It didn't explode, not fully, but one flank ruptured, and the ship began bleeding heat and atmosphere in long, spiraling ribbons. Escape pods jettisoned, tiny flares drifting outward into the dark, hopeful but doomed. The mood on the bridge changed instantly. It wasn't celebration. It wasn't horror either. Just a stillness. Eyes watched those little pods spin and tumble. Only one sailor muttered something under his breath. Poor bastards, we all heard it. No one replied. Then came the ping, a soft ding through the hull, felt more than heard. A tremble, like a bell struck from far away. Every head snapped toward the navigator. Another ping, closer, sharper. The air changed. Destroyer, Kale whispered. She was already bringing up sensor overlays. The patterns were erratic, but unmistakable. Drifted in from the shadow of the freighter, the sensor tech said. Not active, not on scans. A coincidence, a cruel one. They weren't looking for us, but they found us anyway. Idris didn't hesitate. Blue alert, dive to silent depth, all systems cold. And just like that, the light turned. The bridge glowed pale blue. Conversations died. The hull pressure seals hissed shut. We began to sink, slow at first, then faster. Every unnecessary system blinked out. Power rerouted to life support and control surfaces only. I was escorted off the bridge by a silent crewman and directed back toward my bunk. No footsteps, just soft movement. Ghosts in a silver corridor. I passed one of the engineers sealing a waste chute with manual clamps. Another one pulling the emergency generator off the hydro loop and strapping it down. Everyone moved like they'd done it 1,000 times. Like this wasn't panic, just drill, just life. In my quarters, I sat on the edge of the bunk and waited. The spear went deeper. The walls began to creak, not from pressure, but from that otherness. The dimensional shift pressing in at angles my body didn't understand. Another ping, this one louder. The hull sang like a tuning fork. My teeth ached from it. I pressed my palms flat to the wall, as if I could will us lower. More silence. Then, boom. Far off, muffled, a void charge had detonated. Not on us. Close, but not deadly. The destroyer was dropping blind charges into the 5th dimension, hoping to get lucky. Another. Closer. Boom. 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 The lights flickered. The floor vibrated. The corridor outside was dark except for low emergency strips. I heard hissing, maybe pressure compensation, maybe something else. A voice outside the bulkhead, hushed but urgent. Seal it now. Metal rang, clamps engaged. The smell of heat and burnt polymer drifted under the door. Another boom, and this one lifted me from the bunk. Red light pulsed once, then died. Then I felt it. The sub wasn't diving anymore, we were falling. A sudden shift as if the ship had slipped off a shelf and was now tumbling down into deeper space. No gravity, no bearings. No, the structure groaned. No longer steady, no longer in control. Screams, somewhere far aft. I heard Kale's voice, barely audible but firm. Hold the trim, counterpitch, don't let her roll. The hull made sounds like breathing through broken glass. And then, a silence so total it throbbed. We had gone deep, too deep. I lay there, half strapped to the bunk, listening to the air itself hum with strain. The spear was still intact, barely. The destroyer didn't ping again. Either they lost us, or they were waiting. We stopped falling. No announcement, no shift in tone, just stillness. Like the ship had exhaled and dared not breathe again. The hull groaned with strain, but no longer in protest. It was the sound of a structure stretched near breaking, holding still only because it didn't remember how to collapse. I unstrapped from the bunk and floated slightly before the mag boots pulled me down again. My knees trembled with that awful weightless-to-weight transition. Somewhere aft I heard the clank and hiss of bulkheads being opened. Quiet voices, tools scraping. They were alive. We were alive. The blue light stayed on. It meant the destroyer was still close enough to matter. Kyle passed my quarters once, hauling a toolkit nearly half her size. Her right sleeve was singed, darkened with soot. She nodded as she moved past, face unreadable. Behind her, 2 crew members carried a body bag. They didn't speak. I didn't ask. The next hour, maybe 2, blurred. The ship shifted from fear to function. Whispered orders passed mouth to ear like a current. No intercoms, no announcements, just presence. Someone reset the life support filters manually. Another rewired a blown capacitor with a soldering iron and a prayer. One of the engineers sealed a microfracture in the ceiling with some kind of expanding polymer that smelled like lemon and static. No one ran, no one panicked, they just worked. That's when I realized they weren't calm. Not really. They were terrified. I saw it in their hands, in the way they blinked too slowly, but they carried it with a kind of reverence. Because down here, fear keeps you alive. We remained deep for nearly 9 hours. The spear coasted, minimal energy output. The destroyer never found us again. Either it drifted, or assumed the last charges had finished the job. Occasionally there'd be a distant boom far above us, a charge detonating in empty subspace. The hull would hum slightly, then return to silence. The worst part wasn't the fear, it was the time. Time doesn't flow right this far down. I had memories from the last hour I couldn't place, thoughts that looped. I checked my slate and found notes I didn't remember writing. Do not speak above a whisper, even in memory. The deeper you go, the more of you is left behind. Her voice is under the floor. I deleted them. Eventually, the whisper relay passed the word. Climb. I didn't feel anything at first. Then came the smallest tilt, the sub easing its way back toward the surface. Not fast, never fast, but steady. We were climbing, no celebration, no return to white light. Blue stayed on. Silence was the rule. But something shifted inside the crew. Kyle came to see me sometime during the ascent. She looked tired, truly tired, for the first time. Her face drawn, her posture stiff from too many hours in grav boots. She handed me a fresh meal pack, bread, meat, salted something. I took it. Thank you. She just nodded, sat across from me on the floor. Her hands were still stained with coolant. After a few minutes, she spoke, low, level, like she'd practiced it before saying it aloud. I've seen 3 boats go down. 1 crushed outright. 1 never came back from the drift. 1 came back, but different. The hull was right, but the people weren't. She didn't elaborate. I don't want to be the 4th. We sat in silence. Then she stood, stretched, and looked back down the corridor. When you go, she said, just know you're carrying more than a treaty. What else am I carrying? She didn't answer. She just tapped the blue light strip overhead. Hope, maybe, or at least an end to this. She left me with that. We're still climbing now. Slowly, quietly. The bridge hasn't called me yet, but I know the launch bay is nearly pressurized. They'll put me in the pod soon, strap me in, fire me toward the station like a silent torpedo with a pen in its hand. The sub will wait below the surface until I'm either received or not. And then they'll turn, quietly, and go home. I hope I see them again. They woke me with a whisper and a hand on my shoulder. Kale again. Her face unreadable, her voice barely louder than breath. It's time. The launch bay was colder than the rest of the ship. The deck plates had that subtle give that says, vacuum is just the other side of the door. Everything smelled of metal and heat-cycled plastic. My pod was waiting. It looked like a torpedo, if torpedoes had a front-facing nav slit and a seat just wide enough to fit a diplomat with a datapad and an ulcer. It wasn't meant for comfort. It was meant for precision. I ran through the protocol one last time with the launch officer, hand gestures only, no speech. The pod would ride a momentum arc into the upper layers of the Florm Station's sensor range, masked by debris trails and local gravitational haze. The outpost wouldn't see me unless I wanted them to. I'd reach a docking pylon, utility airlock D11 confirmed inactive, and manually seal entry. From there, corridors, air, contact, words. I tried to calm my breath as I stepped into the launch cradle. The padding was stiff but warm. Everything inside smelled neutral, like someone had worked hard to remove all human scent. They strapped me in, tight, just enough room to move my arms. My datapad was clipped into the console. A soft glow marked its activation. Preloaded treaty terms, neural engram signature, backup authorization from the Accord Council. I reached to seal the hatch myself. It felt right, like it should be my hand. Kyle watched me the whole time. She didn't salute. That wasn't her way. Instead, just before the hatch closed, she leaned in and whispered, "Don't give them our silence cheaply." Then darkness. Then the hum of disengagement. Then nothing, no sensation of movement, no shake, no acceleration. The pod doesn't fire like a weapon, it slips. It eases away from the spear like a seed leaving a tree. Within moments I couldn't feel the ship anymore. Not its presence, not its protection, not even its shadow. I was alone. I drift now, wrapped in analog silence. The pod has no internal systems that emit light unless manually triggered. The slit in front shows a wash of stars, smeared and bent by gravitational fields and the warping near the Florm station's drift layer. The controls are basic: small cold gas thrust taps, a course override, and a kill switch. My pulse sounds louder than any system hum. I check the data pad again, not because I need to, just to feel like I'm doing something. The terms are still there. They haven't changed. My authority holds. I carry the full weight of a government that doesn't know if I'll survive the day. It's strange. We came through hell to reach this point. A destroyer, charges, a near collapse. And now here I float, unseen, with nothing but hope and a diplomatic seal. It's too quiet to be comforting. I think if I fail, if this pod is intercepted or destroyed, there won't be another mission. No second chance, no recovery team, just more fighting, more dead crew on both sides, more names carved into the wall panels of ships that don't return. And I think of the crew of the Spear, the calm ones, the whisperers, the ones who moved through the dark without complaint. They'll never be remembered for this. Their part ends here. I remember Kale's words. Don't give them our silence cheaply. No, I won't. If they open that airlock, I'll speak every word I've carried with me across this cursed corridor of dead physics and dangerous luck. I'll speak for Kale, for Idris, for the crew who sat through every ping and pressure groan, for the soldier who cursed and prayed and held a wrench against the flames. I'll speak for them, and for the ones still fighting, still dying, still drifting in their own silence. If they let me, if the doors open, if they don't, well, then I'll be quiet too. The station took longer to appear than I expected. It rose out of the dark like a reef, cold, angular, quiet. The Florm don't design for aesthetics. Their structures are all function and survival. Braced hulls, exposed spines, armor slats curved for efficiency, not elegance. A skeleton hung in orbit. My pod drifted just beneath their outer perimeter, riding inertia. No sensors lit up, no targeting beacons, no escort drones. If they saw me, they didn't stop me. I aligned with the utility pylon manually, clamping the pod to Dock D11. The system responded on the third try, sticky, uncalibrated. The outer seal opened with a groan of ancient hydraulics, followed by a sharp hiss as the inner hatch cycled. Thin atmosphere rushed in, cool, sterile, dry. I stepped out alone. No escort, no lights, just a single corridor leading deeper. I moved slowly, the data pad slung in a chest rig. My boots echoed softly across the deck grating, though the Florm don't seem to mind sound the way we do. They don't operate on stealth, they operate on assumption. You are either too dangerous to attack or already dead. They were waiting for me at the chamber, 3 of them, no armor, no weapons, just robes. Ritualistic, yes, but muted, faded fabric, hands folded, faces unreadable, but open. One stepped forward, taller than I expected, voice dry and precise. "You are Kalen Mar," I nodded. He gestured to a low platform between us. No chairs, just a table. I placed the datapad on it. This contains the final terms, I said. Pre-approved. Binding under the accord. Signatures embedded and time-stamped at the moment of launch. He didn't reach for it. Why now? He asked. I took a breath. Not a diplomatic one. A real one. The kind that comes before truth. Because I've seen enough of what comes if we don't. Because you've seen it too. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was shared. He finally touched the datapad. Thumbprint, retinal scan, internal neuro ID, all done in silence. The others watched without moving. Then he looked up. It is done. That was it. No applause, no ceremonial gesture, just those 3 words. I felt something leave me. Not weight, not fear, just noise. I stood there while they deactivated a beacon, sent some transmission. I don't know. Protocol probably. Informing the rest of their fleet. They didn't consult me, but I could feel it radiating outward. The war is over. Not by victory, not by surrender, just conclusion. They gestured toward a corridor. A living escort ship from the Accord would arrive within hours. Now that the war was no longer active, it would dock openly, loudly, in full spectrum. I wasn't needed anymore. My mission was complete. Before I left the chamber, I turned back to the lead envoy. There's a crew still waiting down there, I said, at the bottom, holding their breath. He nodded. We will let them breathe. I don't know if he meant it literally. I don't think it matters. I walked that long corridor alone, boots ringing against a quiet hull. And I hoped the spear was already rising, that her crew would see the surface again, that Kale would unbuckle her vest, breathe fresh air, maybe even laugh, that the names of the dead would be remembered by those who lived, and that this silence, this hard-earned, terrible quiet, would be the last of its kind. I've been given quarters aboard the station, temporary, sparse, a cot, a screen, a meal I haven't touched. I've been told the Accord vessel is inbound, 8 hours, maybe 10, depending on relay confirmation and Florm docking protocols. There's nothing more for me to do, no logs to deliver, no clauses to negotiate, just wait. And so I write this, not because it's required, but because I need to. Because somewhere below me, far below, past light and mass in space, there's a ship holding its breath, a hull still whispering under its own weight. A crew that stared down annihilation to deliver me here. I want this record to live, even if I don't. The Silent Spear never fired a second shot. After the freighter, after the fall, after every ping and rupture and impossible dive, they brought me to the edge. No recognition, no expectation, just a whisper. Go. I don't know if they've risen yet. I don't know if they will, but I hope they breach the surface soon. I hope the light finds them whole. I hope they go home, not to medals, not to fame, just to quiet skies, to family, to kitchens and blankets and sunrises that don't come with sirens. This war is over, and if the words I brought helped end it, then that's enough. For the Florm soldier who never fired, for the Accord captain who held his course, for the nameless hands who patched a ruptured hull in silence and disappeared into duty. If peace holds, they'll survive the void, and maybe, just maybe, no one else will have to learn how to live in the blue light. End of log. That's it for this week's Crew Log. If you enjoyed the transmission, hit like, subscribe, and slap that little bell like it owes you credits. New logs drop every Sunday, some funny, some freaky, all human. Want to help us keep broadcasting across the stars? Support the channel on Patreon and fuel the madness directly. Until next time, take care humans. Fuck yeah.